How fair housing complaints are investigated. When a complaint becomes an investigation, most real estate professionals work hard to comply with fair housing laws and never receive a complaint. However, understanding what happens if a complaint is filed is an important part of risk management. A fair housing complaint is more than simply a disagreement between two parties. It begins a formal legal process that can involve investigations, interviews, document requests, subpoenas, and in some cases, administrative hearings or civil litigation. Knowing how that process works helps licensees appreciate the importance of maintaining accurate records and treating every consumer fairly. Filing a fair housing complaint. An individual who believes they have experienced unlawful housing discrimination may file a complaint with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD. Generally, the complaint must be filed within 1 year of the alleged discriminatory housing practice. The complaint must be submitted in writing and include sufficient information for HUD to begin its investigation. HUD may also initiate its own complaints when it has reason to believe a pattern or practice of discrimination exists. What happens next? Once a complaint has been filed, HUD begins a formal investigation. The complainant receives information explaining the investigation process, available remedies, and important filing deadlines. The respondent, often the property owner, brokerage, property manager, or real estate licensee, is also notified of the complaint and receives a copy of the allegations. The respondent generally has an opportunity to submit a written response explaining their position. HUD's goal is to investigate the facts objectively rather than assume either party is correct. The investigation. During the investigation, HUD may interview witnesses, review contracts and transaction files, request emails, text messages, advertisements, and other communications, examine brokerage records, review policies and procedures, request additional documentation from either party. Whenever possible, HUD attempts to complete its investigation within approximately 100 days. Some investigations, however, require additional time because of the complexity of the issues or the amount of evidence involved. If additional time is necessary, HUD notifies the parties regarding the delay. Conciliation. One aspect of the fair housing process that surprises many people is that HUD attempts to resolve many disputes before formal litigation becomes necessary. This process is known as conciliation. If appropriate, HUD may assist the parties in negotiating a voluntary settlement agreement. A successful conciliation agreement can resolve the complaint without further legal proceedings. If conciliation is unsuccessful, the investigation continues. Determining reasonable cause. After completing the investigation, HUD evaluates all of the available evidence. If HUD determines there is reasonable cause to believe a fair housing violation occurred, it issues a formal charge, and the matter proceeds through the administrative hearing process or another authorized legal forum. If HUD determines there is no reasonable cause, the complaint is dismissed. Not every complaint results in a violation. The evidence determines the outcome. The importance of honest cooperation. Throughout the investigation, honesty matters. Providing false information, altering documents, destroying evidence, or intentionally misleading investigators can create serious legal consequences that extend well beyond the original complaint. Maintaining complete transaction records and responding truthfully to investigators helps ensure the process remains fair for everyone involved. Arizona licensees should remember. Although HUD investigates federal fair housing complaints, Arizona licensees also remain subject to the Arizona Department of Real Estate. A fair housing violation may also result in disciplinary action against a real estate license, depending on the circumstances. That means a single fair housing complaint may involve multiple agencies reviewing the same conduct. The best defense is maintaining consistent office policies, accurate documentation, and professional communication throughout every transaction. Real-world example. Suppose a buyer alleges they were never shown homes in a particular neighborhood because of their national origin. HUD requests the brokerage's showing records, emails, text messages, MLS searches, and transaction notes. Because the agent carefully documented the buyer's requested price range, financing qualifications, search criteria, and every property shown, the records clearly demonstrate that homes were selected based upon the buyer's stated preferences, not on any protected characteristic. Good documentation often becomes one of a licensee's strongest defenses. Broker tip: every email, text message, social media conversation, MLS search, and transaction note could become evidence during a fair housing investigation. If you would not be comfortable explaining a communication to a HUD investigator, don't send it. Professional communication protects both you and your clients. Online discussion question: Why is documentation so important during a fair housing investigation? Answer. Accurate records help demonstrate that housing decisions were based on legitimate business reasons rather than unlawful discrimination. What is the purpose of conciliation during a fair housing investigation? Answer. Conciliation gives the parties an opportunity to voluntarily resolve the dispute before formal administrative hearings or litigation become necessary. Question. Can a fair housing complaint affect an Arizona real estate license? Answer. Yes. Depending on the facts, fair housing violations may also result in disciplinary action by the Arizona Department of Real Estate, in addition to any federal enforcement.